do week to week.
Yeah, certainly interesting too when you look at the contrast of the two lineups. Both these players brought Priest, the language hacker with a pretty controversial no Demon Hunter lineup. When I say controversial, it's only because I feel like Demon Hunter is one of those auto includes. Like you could kind of talk me out of almost every other class, but some variant of Demon Hunter feels important to keep other lineups honest, so that way they don't like get another ban on another powerful class here. Or even worse yet, the fact that you don't have a way to answer certain cards. So we'll see how it ends up panning out. I want to see Language Hacker's risk pay off here, even though I do want to see Fr0zen succeed as well. But not everybody can win in a 1v1 competition. In the meantime, let's go ahead and take a look at our T-Mobile deck spotlight for the day. And it is a Warrior deck, which has similarities to Bloody Face's Warrior, but a lot of differences as well. So, TJ, why don't we talk a little bit about what stands out in particular about this deck?
Yeah, I think the thing that stands out the most is how defensively oriented this deck is compared to some of the other ones. While you do play Bloodsworn Mercenary, there's no Rampage, there's no charge minions like Corcoran Elite to try and go for that big burst of game-ending damage. There's no bombs, there's no Blastmaster Boom, there's no Excalibur. It just relies on kind of defensive tools. It has Sword and Board and value, right? With Livewire Lance, that's the weapon you're going to get instead of Wrench Caliber from the Corsair cache, which gives you additional Lackey. Grand Lackey Urk kind of comes in there when it and allows you to just chain Lackey after Lackey after Lackey in the late game to refill resources. It's much more focused on that value / defense as opposed to just trying to kill your opponent as quick as possible, which does work better against, let's say Demon Hunter or other aggressive decks. I feel like it also works better against like Druid, who doesn't necessarily, who does draw a lot of cards, so the bomb is good, but you're just going to have so many defensive tools and so many ways to deal with your opponent's boards each and every turn that they can never stick any board whatsoever. And we'll see how that plays out, but I feel like the bad matchup is like Warlock. And I think that Language Hacker might have banned away the Warlock. He banned either Warlock or Priest.
I believe it was Warlock.
Yeah, and that's where you kind of need that extra damage or that aggressive gameplay. But Language Hacker performed pretty well in the Swiss round, so that's why we kind of wanted to spotlight his Warrior deck because of the fact that it's kind of goes against the grain and goes against what a lot of other players are doing.
Yeah, so I think going against the grain is definitely his specialty, but definitely also looking forward to see how this deck performs when put to the test. Because, quite frankly, if you're not testing against other top players, you might getting some false positives by playing on ladder. I was talking a little bit with Gallon last night and even practicing with him. He was very gracious enough that after he had a tough day of GM games, he sat down. We played a lot of games together. And he was just saying like how he feels as if ladder, getting rank 1 legend in North America feels easier than going 3 and 4 in Swiss against top GMs. And I was like, you should tweet that. So we did. And then afterwards we kind of talked a little bit more about it. But he said that, he felt like things on ladder just wasn't really giving him the right kind of data and the right set of ideas going into it. So while some of these deck lists might work out if you're climbing ladder and hitting top 10, top 25, top 50, etc., against players of Fr0zen caliber, will Language Hacker's risk pay off here?
Yeah, that's the big question. And Fr0zen bringing, I'd say, more of a standard lineup. The Priest is maybe a little bit out there, but I feel like Priest is in a really good spot right now. I'm surprised like more players didn't bring it. It does have some glaring weaknesses, just in kind of its ability to keep dealing with wave after wave while also being proactive on their own side. They can't do both things. It feels they have to do one or the other, but sometimes they just reach a critical mass and nobody can ever take board back from them. But yeah, we won't be seeing the Priests from Language Hacker side. That was banned away, and yeah, we were correct. Language Hacker did ban away the Warlock, which just kind of makes sense for his lineup overall.
Yeah, Warlock is just a very versatile deck and classic, and we've seen even just the variations of how the Warlock chooses to approach certain matchups. It feels like it can play very flexibly, which is really scary about it. And of course, things like Dragon Queen, Fr0zen, and Zephyrus, even in duplicate decks, still has a lot of relevance, which I think people really like to see because you have a all Highlander deck that you should normally slot in Zephyrus and Dragon Queen, totally viable to put it in Warlock, as we've seen from the Descent of Dragons expansion. So after game one, we're going to take a break, but this is we're still going to just roll into the series, so don't have to go anywhere. I think a lot of people expect us to be stalling and tossed to a commercial break, but that's not the case. We're actually just waiting for the players to get ready and settle. And it is kind of fun if we can take a second to just maybe recognize that Grandmasters for Hearthstone was well positioned to proceed as usual, given that it was already an all online league to start with. So, I'm glad that together, TJ, because I do know that a lot of other leagues in this industry are struggling to put things together.
Yeah, we had a small advantage, but it was still a lot of work to do, mainly for the people behind the scenes trying to figure out how to get this broadcast online and have what is normally a control room of people with very expensive, high-end, powerful equipment to be able to do that from their home PCs. And even for us, just trying to finagle enough to get our stuff working consistently, at least, has been a lot. But I'm glad we're here and able to broadcast. I tweeted out earlier, I'm just excited to watch high-level Hearthstone again, and high-stakes matches, and watch a competitive metagame unfold week after week. Like, that's the most exciting thing to me. So as long as we have that each week in front of us and somehow our voices are broadcast to the world, I'll be happy.
Absolutely. Yeah, and it's cool seeing what players are keeping under their sleeves. It feels like for the first time in a while in Hearthstone, there's secrets being kept. It felt weird. I'm not going to lie, teacher. I'm just going to throw it out there. It felt kind of weird that players were complaining that they had no edge, and yet they were talking so openly about what they were playing, what their best deck was. And it felt like there were conflicting ideas. I'm totally down to net deck and copy top players' decks because it's always really fun to win and be ahead of everybody else. But now that there's, camps, boot camps rather, practice groups, and secret strategies being developed there where they're concealing deck lists until they submit stuff, it makes it really exciting for the reveal, right? Like, I want to see all the deck lists, and I was really excited, particularly because there was that Reddit AMA announced for a balance patch, so players could really go all out and just play whatever best deck list that they had. So now that the patch is announced, and we're basically playing a 1 week meta here, I'm glad that lnguagehackr took the risks. He's going to start things off with the cash and pick up the live wire land, so he is well fitted to pick apart anything that Fr0zen plays early here. We have seen some druids try to get onto the board fast with Power of the Wild, or sometimes just hold it, right? Because they know that they have a lot of time. However, it is an aggressive deck, so I don't know if in Fr0zen's mind he thinks that he has a luxury to take as much time as he normally would.
Yeah. Not sure. A lot of times it can be hard to use both Power of the Wilds, though. And also at some point, hand space does become an issue for druids. Because once you start going off, Overflow is kind of that card that fits in there, usually with Kael'thas to kind of refill your hand. And 5 cards is a lot. And a lot of times you want all those 5 cards because you need the highest chance to draw those 0 mana spells in order to keep the chain going. But just decides to hero power pass. Just give room for lnguagehackr to kind of not have to worry about clearing and can kind of just develop. The biggest thing for him is setting up as strong of a board as possible to make sure that if Glowfly Swarm does come down on turn 5, that he has an answer to it. And that's by either setting up a board where he can draw cards or 2, finding Risky Skipper, which the Ankard will very likely do, and does find it. So now he has an answer to the Glowfly Swarm, which means that he's probably feeling pretty confident.
Right. So then on Fr0zen's end, if he knows that Risky Skipper will answer Glowfly Swarm. Does he rip it and just try to get those cards out of the hand? Or is he going to wait and try to layer his threats all in one turn? We've seen players, like we said, like go all out and win as fast as turn 5 because their opponents didn't have an answer. But if they do have an answer, we've also seen some ridiculous boards where they play Kael'thas and draw their entire deck by like turn 7. So Fr0zen doesn't have the Kael'thas in hand, so I don't think he can pull off something as wild as that. But he does have some opportunities to layer his threats, especially with cards that are difficult to answer, like the exotic mount seller.
Yeah, especially combined with oh man, Ironbark.
Yeah,
is that what it's called? The name escapes
card?
Me.
Or it becomes 0 mana rather.
It becomes 0 mana from turn 7 onwards.
And it gives taunt and +1/+3.
Ironbark. Wow, I was right. Okay, yes. Especially come out with Ironbark, because that just makes it really difficult. You can also use Ironbark on one of the BC you summon if you play a spell earlier to even make it so that like direct damage can't answer it. So those types of boards are tough, and we'll see. And I just realized now, I was like, wow, lnguagehackr is just so chill. He's barely moved. His camera's frozen.
His camera's frozen. I was like, well, he looks chill. He is in the zone. Zen
wow,
master.
Grandmasters for 1 week and all. He's just the zenest dude on the planet.
That's right.
Nope, his camera's just frozen. That's it. Took me a second. There we go. They fixed it. Production didn't even know. They thought he was also Zen because they would have put up his picture if they'd known.
Right. That's pretty.
That's funny.
Yeah. Well, lnguagehackr, big chillin', and Fr0zen with the Innervate Forest Aid. I wasn't really expecting that. If anything, part of me even expected Fr0zen to pass there because did he have 9 cards or 10 cards? He had 9 cards. So I felt like he had an opportunity to just kind of like wait and maybe see if another draw would have changed anything.
Yeah.
But what do you think he's trying to achieve here with the Innervate Forest Aid?
Well, he knows there's a Risky Skipper, right? Very likely. There's a possibility that there's no Risky Skipper. If one, he didn't draw one, and two, lnguagehackr picked up Captain Greenskin from one pirate and Sky Raider as the other pirate. But this is a test for Risky Skipper, right? Because the Forest Aid is always 5. Glowfly Swarm can be 7. Also, lnguagehackr, seeing Forest Aid, is much less likely to just play Risky Skipper because of the fact that he knows that there's a second Forest Aid. So Fr0zen could just go back-to-back Forest Aid. That'll be a good check for Risky Skipper. And if it's not, then he knows. He probably just wins, but if not, then he can play Glowfly Swarm to back it up. That's my thoughts, but
I mean, it sounds entirely plausible. And I think it ends up working well for Fr0zen as well, because now he has opportunities to utilize things like Power of the Wild finally, and just put enough pressure to annoy lnguagehackr, but not enough to maybe justify using giant AoE turns to try to answer the board. Alternatively, if he isn't going to try and develop his board more, what other options does he have?
he can just play Gift of the Wild. Just start pushing. I don't know.
So Gift of the Wild, which, by the way, very humorous to me, that Gift of the Wild, when it was revealed as one of the new cards for the classic set of Druid, people were saying, this card is probably one of the worst cards to ever have existed. And now it's seeing a lot of play, specifically in the spell-based Druid decks. But it might actually not be awful here.
It's a really tough turn, right? Because you don't really want to play the second Forest Aid because you're wasting a bit of it. You don't. It feels like you don't really want to clear, just because you're not doing anything. You're giving lnguagehackr effectively a full turn of setup.
Missed damage. And did Fr0zen even get his attack off with his hero? Did. Little bit sloppy here from Fr0zen, but not the end of the world. Just a very tiny bit.
Yeah.
But it might end up making a difference. A lot of times with these warrior decks, especially with Armor Smith and Risky Skipper, if you get them down to that critical range and then they just get that big combo off and gain 12, sometimes even more armor, they lock the door and throw away the key, and it's tough to ever come back from that spot. As a druid deck that also lacks direct damage from the hand, they don't really play things like swipe to really try to get through taunts. They just try to go through the hard manual way. lnguagehackr picks up the Blood Boil Rusher. And with this, does he have an opportunity just to kind of get out of the hand, or does he want to develop other cards like the Captain Greenskin, which is kind of just waiting in the hand for a while? Captain Greenskin Witchy Lackey seems entirely reasonable.
Yeah. The Blood Boil Brute plus Witchy Lackey is also good, because that gives you an 8-drop, and 8-drops are just quite good across the board. A lot of high-impact 8-drops, but there's some bad ones, like the new Priest legendary, Natalie.
Yes,
Natalia.
for a Priest. Yeah.
Yeah, it's an 8/1 when it gets just summoned on the board and the battle credits go off. So that's a bad one. That worsened the pool by quite a bit. But overall, I like the Blood Boil Brute plus Witchy Lackey because it allows you to trade immediately and then buff up to one of the best mana slots. I think 7 is also a good mana slot, honestly, these days. A lot of taunt minions at 7. Just a lot of big beefy stuff, stuff that's weighted more heavily towards health and attack, that kind of thing. But 8 always has like the bombs, like Tyrion.
And pretty soon, it's going to have Kael'thas.
Yeah, that's also true.
When we said direct damage, by the way, I wasn't really counting Moonfire as direct damage, but it technically is. And we'll see lnguagehackr respond to this. He can take out several of these Glowflies pretty fairly without having to use his Risky Skipper. He has the Cobalt Lackey. He's got the Blood Boil Brute. If he found a Rushing Lackey, that could have been the case as well.
Yeah, he's being very patient.
Extremely patient.
With his Risky Skipper, or with both of them, because he has both now. Which leads me to believe that he's played this matchup a ton.
Right. I think he really respects the follow-up, especially with things like the exotic Mount Seller.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's just like the concept that he might need more than one skipper for a clear if a Soul of the Forest play comes at the same time. The peak power performance of the Spell Druid deck is truly a spectacle to watch. If you see its ideal cards line up in the way it does with Kael'thas, cheap cards like Moonfire, Innervate, and to Overflow, you'll see some pretty amazing turns come from nowhere. So maybe him just holding on to those double Risky Skippers is insurance.
Ooh.
Oh,
the Augmented
fun.
Porcupine. And he gets to taunt it up with the Ironbark. That's going to make things much more awkward. Actually, no, because it's the highest health minion besides the exotic Mount Seller. I was thinking, oh, it might kill off like the last Risky Skipper because he'll kill it off. But actually, by taunting it, he makes it easier for lnguagehackr to navigate around it. Like, let's say he left it at 5 health, right, and 3 attack with just the Power of the Wild. It would have been harder because before he got through the 6 health minion or the exotic Mount Seller at 9 health, he would have had to think about the death rattle from the Porcupine interrupting whatever combos or attacks he had on the board. I don't know. Maybe I'm overthinking that, but...
Well, either way, this looks like a tough spot for lnguagehackr. He does have his Armor Smith and his Risky Skippers. He does have a lot of cheap cards, so with this, he should at least be able to clear off most of the minions. Let's see what comes out the Draconic Lackey. Ooh. Are any of these auto picks? The Dragon Queen Alexstrasza is the flashiest, but I don't know if lnguagehackr can even activate that. Evasive Orb is good tempo. Little inefficient against tutus, though.
Yeah, the Spellkin can get Shield Slam, Sword and Board. Which it looks like he values. I mean, he's going to have a ton of armor to be able to Shield Slam next turn. Ooh, the Deathwing Mad Aspect is good.
It is very good. And all of this armor being gained. But the spray damage right back clears off some of lnguagehackr board. So funny interactions back and forth. How much damage is this? This is 6, 12, 14, plus 3 of the power of the wild. 17 plus 6 of the gift of wild is not enough. Not even close. It shreds most of the armor.
Yep.
I think it actually gets almost all the armor off. Yeah.
A good amount. Almost. 2 left. And yeah, Deathwing doesn't even touch this.
Okay, but does this Blood Boil Brute change anything? We have... We don't have many more cheap minions to summon here for Risky Skipper.
Yeah.
This looks so tough.
I don't know. Like, it looked like lnguagehackr's plan was solid to hold on to the Risky Skippers and get greedy. But he used so many resources just trying to not use the Risky Skipper. And then by the time one of the Risky Skippers came down, it didn't even answer the board.
Right.
I don't know if that's just, kind of Fr0zen, doling out his resources efficiently and just making it an impossible scenario for lnguagehackr to deal with. But it just leaves a bad taste in my mouth that that's how it panned out, and maybe playing the Risky Skipper earlier and holding on to the resources to deal with a follow-up and having a bigger board in place maybe would have been better. Not sure.
Yeah, it's really easy for us to kind of say it from this perspective. But I totally understand lnguagehackr's reasoning of like why he held on to the cards that he did. And I think Fr0zen did an excellent job just like pressuring enough and getting his opponent within striking distance. And the Deathwing attack order did not really pan out well here. There is 21 damage with that Moonfire. Am I counting it right? There's 9 plus the 5 and 5. That's 19. Hero power is 20. Moonfire is 21. That should be enough to end this game here.
Exactly, Phil.
And Fr0zen is going for the victory lap. Getting that excess mana here.
He's gonna find it, right? Because
he's gonna
at
find
the end of this turn, he's gonna
attack
in hero power.
Yeah, he's gonna be
and then he's gonna realize that he's at 1. Yeah, he's gonna attack in hero power, realize he's at 1, and then Moonfire. Okay. Yeah, okay. Yeah.
It's okay. It all happens, Sometimes I'm like, oh snap, I have lethal.
Yeah, it happens to the best of us.
Right,
I'll say that.
And I think it's partially maybe goes to show you that these players are so focused on the state of the board and the damage breakpoints that maybe the direct damage that they have isn't a point of concern from them primarily. They think about it after they think what's the best possible play to set up the board and pressure my opponent, thinking about what cards they've played, thinking about the removal options that they have. There's so many things that they're calculating, figuring out, and then at the very end they're like, wait, I have exactly lethal. I should have just played this first. Pretty fun to think about.
Yeah. Well, Moonfire oftentimes is not even used for direct damage in the deck. That's not what it's for in the deck. It's like a 0-mana spell activator for Exotic Mount Seller and for Kael'thas. So your mind skips over it. It's like, oh, this is actually just deal 1 damage to my opponent. Instead, it's, this makes me get free 2/2s. My board full of them with Kael'thas. That's all you think.
Right. Or like, how many cards do I have to draw with Kael'thas? Should I stall here? How much do I develop? But overall, job well done, because Fr0zen's macro understanding of like what he needed to do to pressure lnguagehackr, he executed very well. So now we go into game number 2. And lnguagehackr, does he choose to play this warrior again? So you said that you felt like the warrior... was it favored against the druid, or do you feel like the druid was kind of destined to beat the warrior?
So when I was playing the deck, I played against a lot of spell druid. I played lnguagehackr's warrior deck a lot. He was actually spectating me during some of it, and he wasn't providing much. He spectated me more during when I was playing his mage deck. So that's more where I had the insight. But when he was playing his warrior deck, or when I was playing his warrior deck, it felt like I was beating druids. But I don't think they were spacing out their boards as much as Fr0zen was, right? They were just all inning it as soon as they could, right? Glowfly Swarm would come down instantly as soon as they could play it. Forest Day would come down instantly. Exotic Mouse would come down instantly. So it didn't feel like their boards were like spaced out that much, and they didn't hold on to their power cards for as long as like Fr0zen did. They just kind of played it, and that actually played into my hands better because I had their tools ready. I was just waiting for an excuse to use them.
Well, they're all noobs, TJ. Every single one of them jamming the spell druid stuff on curve.
All of them.
All of them, just silly noobs that need to watch Hearthstone Grandmasters Americas to learn how it's properly done from Fr0zen. In the meantime, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to have Fr0zen versus lnguagehackr continue with Game 2 of this Best of 5 series. Stay tuned.
Hearthstone Grandmasters is brought to you by T-Mobile, helping you stay connected to what matters most. Learn about T-Mobile's COVID-19 response on T-Mobile.com.
Wow, all those sound like things like lnguagehackr would do.
He has not given me any banana bread.
He doesn't make banana bread.
Banana bread. That was not the line.
I've known him so long, he never offered me a slice.
I don't think lnguagehackr make mean banana bread.
lnguagehackr's lie is that he does not make mean banana bread. Otherwise, he would have definitely given me a slice. But at this point, I've known him for a while. Wow, I feel a little hurt, actually.
He used to play the flute as the lie.
Wrong. He doesn't make me banana bread. I've never tried it, but he claims he does. So.
Honestly, maybe that's a lie as well. We need him to test it out.
If Blizzard hooked me up with a kitchen at the next Master Tour, I could sell banana bread.
I don't think he used to play the flute instrument.
Did in fact.
Oh! He didn't used to play the flute.
Oof. Alright. I would go for a third one, but he doesn't know how to play flute. Is the first one?
He did used to play the flute.
Oh, wait.
He's not ambidextrous.
Oh, I thought he knew his right hand.
There's no way lnguagehackr ambidextrous. That's insane. If he was ambidextrous, I'm pretty sure I would have seen it at some point. Like, that's something I would show off. Like, who wouldn't show that off?
Welcome back, everybody. I was fixing my hair and clearing my mouth from the snacks. Welcome back, everyone, to the Hearthstone Grandmasters. I hope you enjoyed our segment, Two Truths and a Lie. TJ worked really hard to come up with that series of questions, so hope you've been enjoying it. If you're just tuning in, we have Fr0zen versus lnguagehackr, game number 1 in the books, and we're getting ready for game number 2, where Fr0zen is up 1-0. Now, TJ, as I clear my mouth with a nice swig of water, why don't you go ahead and talk a little bit about what's coming up for game 2?
I was going to do the same thing, Dan. Actually, let's just synchronize our water.
Okay. You want to cheers?
Yeah. Wait, which side is it?
It's
oh, this side. Ready? Cheers. Cheers, Dan.
Cheers, buddy.
2 snacks. All right, now
anyway, stay hydrated.
Now
That's actually a big thing. Please drink a lot of water and sleep. You know, since we're inside all day, it makes it really easy to lose track of those things or kind of look at our computer screens a little bit longer without taking any breaks. just make sure you do. It's really important. It's also stay a little active as well. Helps you. In the meantime, game number 2 coming up. Language Hacker still has that mage, the warlock, and the warrior up. Fr0zen with just the demon hunter and the priest. I'm pretty confident that demon hunter can still get there, but if I look at language hacker, a lot of it is geared towards beating demon hunter. So Fr0zen might try to avoid it for a bit, and it looks like our suspicions have been confirmed. He's going to go with priest for game number 2. Now, priest has gone through a couple of interesting changes. People have been playing a lot of resurrect priest as their deck of choice for this class. And I still am on the fence about it. What do you think about Resurrect Priest, TJ?
Yeah, I'm on the fence about it as well. On the one hand, there are some crazy things that Resurrect Priest can do. The biggest one being the Bad Luck Albatross Grave Rune combination, which just makes life miserable for your opponent. Because you just shuffle so many Albatross into your opponent's deck that almost every single one of their draws feels dead. Shuts off Highlander decks, shuts off Pure Paladin, bless their little hearts, and all shuts off like Spell Mage. It makes things very awkward. They also just have like infinite value generation with Galacrond and being able to generate priest minions. So in very slow matchups where they're not threatened and have time to hero power return, you're almost never going to out-resource them. You just have to kill them at some point, and that becomes very difficult. The strength or the weakness of it is that it often can't do two things at once. If they can't build a board and they have to answer your board every turn, they never become proactive. Outside of crazy random generations, because a lot of times they have to like Plague of Death to clear things, or Soul Mirror, which doesn't give them much development; it just gives them removal. So if you can, clear their board and keep pushing little bits at a time and keep building, a bigger and bigger board and hold on to it, that's where Priest kind of falls apart. And I feel like that's where a lot of players, maybe yours included, are on the fence about the deck, because there are some times where it feels like, I felt like my early game was okay. I felt like I res minions, and then I just got to the later parts of the mid game or the late game, and I just could never stick a board, and I could never clear board after board after board, and I eventually just died. Yep. And that makes sense. That can be weird.
Maybe that's kind of the missing piece that I felt when I played the deck. It just felt like my late game plan was pretty much improvising a win condition on the spot, or hoping that they just draw like an incredible series of Albatross and I just like have something stick and just beat them. So yeah, I'm not convinced. But also one thing that somewhat concerns me is the trends of the data. If you look at Resurrect Priest, and I know that I just said you shouldn't really trust data as much, but at each increasing rank tier, right, when you go all the way from Bronze to Legend, the win rate of Resurrect Priest just drops a little bit more until it reaches Legend, and then it dips below 50%, and then it reaches top Legend, and then it just looks like a tier 3, tier 4 deck. So Fr0zen clearly has a game plan designed with the Priest, and to be fair, it does have some pretty decent matchups. For example, if you went against OTK Demon Hunter, it seems like Priest is excellent against that, because they will never draw their win condition if you just keep putting Albatross into their deck. But I'm curious to see, and I'm very open-minded. It's a week and a half into the expansion, less than 10 days or so, and a balance patch has happened and will be happening. I am very much fluid in terms of what I think is right and wrong in this game right now.
Yeah. And aside from the data that you mentioned, which is like the aggregate ladder data, if you look at the data just from the Swiss portion of this event, from the 7 rounds of Swiss that all the Americas players played on Wednesday and Thursday this week, Priest only had a positive win rate against 2 classes. It was Druid, which makes sense because they have a lot of waves of removal, and like Breath of the Infinite just clears those kinds of boards quite well. And Plague of Death, obviously, is going to clear any board. And Warrior. And that one's a pretty low sample size. They won 5 out of 6 matches. But you can kind of tell why they would beat Warrior, because they just run them out of resources and put some taunts in the way and call it a day. Those are the only 2 decks that they have, only 2 classes they have positive win rates against. Whereas, meanwhile, if you look at Warlock, only a 7-game sample size, but they only won 2 of those matches, so a 29% win rate, which is pretty abysmal against Warlock specifically. So that's where I'm kind of worried for the deck, especially since that sample size is taken directly from the matches that these very players have played with their very decks.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I mean, all the data, we could talk about and debate about it, but the fact is Fr0zen's at half-life at turn 5 because lnguagehackr has a very aggressive Galakrond curve. Fr0zen does have access to that extra mana crystal with the Mana Saber, but there's not much to use here except for the Holy Smite, which I guess you could use to preserve as 3/5, so makes entirely a lot of sense there. And lnguagehackr does not have a dragon yet, but picks it up. You could also Mortal Coil to draw right now and explore what options he has besides his Netherwing on 5.
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't seem like lnguagehackr has much more proactive things to develop besides Netherwing, so definitely in favor of exploring that option as a primary thing, but also totally okay if he wants to life tap and draw more cards, and then simply draw the Fr0zen Shadow Weaver. Fr0zen Shadow Weaver seems like a much more important card in matchups like the Demon Hunter, where you try to stop their hero from attacking you with ungodly amounts of damage via Inner Demon. So yeah, I like this line here from lnguagehackr, and it feels like you can use Crazy Netherwing in a much better spot later on.
Yeah, or just keep it back as surprise damage if you're looking at towards lethal, that kind of thing too. Because this Warlock deck actually does pack a good amount of burst. You're not really forced to use your Nether Breath defensively in a lot of cases, so you can hold on to Crazy Netherwing plus like double Nether Breath for 11 burst from hand. That also clears boards or clears a lot of small boards. But this is already a lot of invokes so far. After this Devoted Maniac and Dragonblight Cultist, he will be his Galakrond will be fully invoked. Since he's played the first Dragonblight Cultist as well as the Shield of Galakrond. So
so that makes Galakrond a really relevant draw the moment lnguagehackr picks it up.
He actually threw it away in his mulligan.
Yeah, and I guess that makes sense, right? Because we've seen a lot of people put the cart before the horse, have the Galakrond summon one demon. Doesn't really feel like it has high impact there. And also, to be fair, you're a class that also draws a ton of cards with life tap. It makes a lot more sense in classes that might be more restricted with their card draw.
Yeah, this is kind of the situation that we're talking about where lnguagehackr just keeps building a board turn after turn, and Fr0zen has to keep just playing a minion. And if lnguagehackr keeps doing this, and eventually Fr0zen runs out of defensive minions, that's kind of where the weakness comes in. He does have Mass Resurrect, though, with some good stuff in the pool. Convincing Infiltrator, Cartooth Defender. Does have Mana Saber, though?
Yes.
Which, can be good or bad depending on how you look at it. Good in the fact that you just have this thing on the board that will guaranteed be able to attack the following turn outside of Plague of Flames, but not good in the terms of if I need a defensive tool right now, this provides me one. Oh, is that a Holy Nova pickup? Oh, the juice.
Yeah, Holy Nova, very good against this board. In fact, Holy Nova just kind of surprised me as a whole. I feel like that card has significantly improved Priest's quality of life in terms of just their options to deal with early game aggression. It's funny because all of it was just like a 1-mana buff, and all of a sudden a card that we kind of haven't played for half a decade or so in terms of Priest deck lists now is like making its way into a lot. So it felt good. It felt really good.
Yeah. I definitely like the change overall, because it feels like you're can still use it to get aggressive strategies. The one thing it took me a while to get used to though was thinking about Zephyrus removals, right? Because Holy Nova never played into my mind previously that early on into the game or at 4-mana intervals as a removal option for like Glowfly Swarm, because I've been playing a lot of Galakrond Rogue, and so it took me a long time to get the reps in enough to start thinking about Holy Nova as a 4-mana spell instead of a...
Right.
It's funny that I'm talking about this from the experience of Rogue and not from the experience of Priest, which is where it was changed the most. But
yeah,
you get my sentiment there with...
TJ's played a lot of Rogue in his lifetime, so...
yes. I think it's my favorite class in the current metagame.
Interesting.
Which it wasn't in the previous metagame, and even though it was one of the more popular decks. It's kind of funny.
Well, Fr0zen's been looking for a way to reverse the tides, and with this Mass Resurrection, it's up to lnguagehackr to try to deal with this mass healing and removal now. With a Morag Artificer number 2 being drawn, you do have some interesting opportunities to clear. I don't think he needed more than one.
No.
And if I'm lnguagehackr too, I don't feel under too much threat, so I am also comfortable life tapping here to improve my options first. Finds the the Kronks, which can fish out Galakron.
Mm-hmm.
So Dark Skies will deal 9 damage, which is not enough to clear off this board.
Yeah. With the Moag Artificer, it would deal 16. He would also have to like preemptively trade his. The Dark Skies just doesn't really work much, it feels, because he'd have to preemptively trade his Alexstrasza to the Convincing Infiltrator anyway, so that way his Dark Skies wouldn't hit his Alexstrasza. So Plague of Flames just ends up being cleaner in that regard, and he can hold on to the Dark Skies for a time when he doesn't have board presence either.
Right. Well, nice clear here by lnguagehackr, and Fr0zen kind of back to the drawing board. But again, with this priest deck, it really just waits for a long time. There really is no rush to try and get back onto the board here. And in this similar fashion, lnguagehackr used one of the only tools at his disposal to accelerate the pace of the game, which is Alexstrasza.
Yeah.
Sometimes you see the people hold it to the very end of the game and just try to set up a board and go for a effective one-turn kill. Not that it's a true OTK.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is where I'm always kind of stalled out as the Warlock here. I don't really know how to win. It feels like Priest would just keep removing stuff, and then I run out of cards, and then that's the game.
Well, the Warlock did get kind of weird win conditions. Like, you know how there's always decks that have like these win conditions that they can just keep in their back pocket? Like Mage has Puzzle Box, right? Puzzle Box can always get them like lethal from nowhere. Warlock has the 4 Priestess of Fury Galakron, the 4 Imprison Anar, the 6-mana Dormant Demon that deals 10 damage.
Mm-hmm.
Like 4 of those. Like they have those weird. It's the 3 Pyroblast to face puzzle boxes, right? That you can't count them out until their portrait explodes, or they play Galakron, and those things don't happen.
Yeah. Oh, interesting.
Ah.
Nephrodamus as well. This is a legendary from the Demon Hunter class that I don't think I've seen played yet, but it upgrades and summons a random minion of a cost, I believe, when minions die.
When a friendly minion dies.
Yes, when a friendly minion dies, it upgrades the cost of the minion that is summoned randomly. So lnguagehackr could wait for it, but he also could overload on the power of the board right now and just play Nephrodamus.
He's also at 10 cards.
Yes, he is also at 10 cards.
So if he doesn't play it and he discards Galakron, he'd be very upset.
Yeah, and so this is not something that he wants, but alas, not many options at his disposal.
Yep. And plenty of removal still left for Fr0zen. He's got the Soul Mirror, he's got the Plague of Death, Holy Nova for a smaller board. He does have to think about how he wants to space these out, right? Because he has not seen Galakron yet, as we mentioned. So if he tries to go off with a removal here, then It might end up coming back to bite him if Galakrond comes out next turn. Also, the difference between Plague of Death and Soul Mirror. This board seems decent for Soul Mirror because everything dies except for the Azure Explorer. Sorry, it's not Bronze. It's Azure. And
That's right. How dare you, TJ?
I know. If he uses if he plays Galakrond and all of a sudden there's minions that have way more health and attack, or slightly more health than attack, Soul Mirror doesn't clear. It just helps you develop, which he may die on the backswing. So Soul Mirror is safer in this instance because he knows exactly what it's going to do, and he can hold on to Plague of Death for when Galakrond comes out and spawns the demons.
Yep, precisely. Okay, a language hacker with the Rain of Fire draw. Rain of Fire dealing damage to everything. Could end up comboing with his dragon in hand to summon more dragons. Zeracool. Language Hacker also has a full hand, so he's kind of stopped from life tapping temporarily. Does have the opportunity to drop that Netherwing finally to just clear the board off very cleanly and proactively develop. Netherwing and Shield of Galakrond just to kind of put things back into the face of Fr0zen.
Yeah. Well, Zeracool, Rain of Fire actually deals damage to every character, so it does damage yourself.
That's right. It deals damage, 3 damage also because the spell damage.
Yep, so he does actually end up being able to spawn while not having to life tap and fill up his hand in overdraw. So nice use of that. The Rain of Fire tech, Language Hacker has 2 of them. You can tell his deck, all of his decks are very anti-aggro, just making sure that he has a ton of removal across the board. Rain of Fire in combination with Moarg Artificer as well. That's a 3 damage clear. It's basically like a build your own Hellfire that can come down for 3 mana that has more flexibility. I don't know.
I mean, yeah, it does have a lot of flexibility. A lot of the times those cards deal 1 to everything, or like the Maelstrom Portal type cards.
Yeah.
They might surprise you. It's not like Arcane Explosion is the most powerful card, but there's been a lot of times where Arcane Explosion is the best card off of a magic trick.
Yeah.
Or it's exactly what you need off of Zephyrus type situation. Don't sleep on it.
Yeah, especially with a lot of a token-based metagame. Maybe not a token-based metagame. That's a little... I'm getting ahead of myself there. A few decks in the metagame that rely on chipping away with tokens. All right, there's Galakrond.
Galakrond in the hand. Fr0zen also rips another Murzon, so that's pretty insane in terms of him being able to also answer Language Hacker in a similar fashion.
Yeah, the problem with Murzon is that it's sometimes a little bit awkward. It's better when your opponent just plays big minions, right? Or you can't rely on the battle cries too much because you don't get them, right? So it's better to just. Sometimes Murzon can be hard to use, is what I'm trying to get at, because a turn may have seemed powerful from your opponent, but when you just kind of play the cards that they played and don't get all the additional effects of it, then it's a lot weaker than it may have seemed. So you really have to be paying attention and kind of know what they played and know that which cards Murzon has the full effect of. Because it's very expensive. 8 mana is a lot to kind of bank your turn on.
It's true. Language Hacker debating whether or not he wants to use Devoted Maniac for the removal or set up a Shield of Galakrond. Probably doesn't want to overextend into a lot of removal. Is aware of things like Holy Nova and Breath of Dragons to come out and wipe cards like his Shield of Galakrond if he gets too overambitious. Ooh, Murzond here. Plays the Nether Breath and Life Steals and gets the card draw on the 1/1 Imp. Wow, Language Hacker not happy to see that.
See, that's a very, calculated Murzon, because he knows that it wasn't the most powerful effects, but it's consistent, right? He's going to get another breath, he's going to get a coil, he's going to develop an 8/8, and he's going to get a 2/2 with rush. So and he's not in much danger because there's 10 damage on board. He's would have been pretty safe at 23 even if he had not been able to play the penance.
Right, that makes sense. Language
I wonder
Hacker
when he's going to play
has...
this Galcon. Now? Okay, now it is. Ooh.
Oh my. So he has bigger Batterhead. Is
The hulking Overfiend.
Yes, you know the name of it. I know the effect of it. It's essentially what Batterhead does, which is if it attacks and it kills a minion, it gets to attack again.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely an interesting card to get right now, but doesn't actually deal with the opponent's Fr0zen. Now Language Hacker passes it back over to Fr0zen. Fr0zen has to answer this board. He's staring at a board that will kill him.
He is. The problem is... Actually, no. Take that back. No problem.
Yeah, I don't feel like he's forced to use Plague of Death. I think some combination of his smaller AoEs like Holy Nova and the Breath will be good enough to help pick apart the board survive.
Yeah.
He just has to make sure he's not like setting himself up to just easily get killed here, because he does know that Nether Breath, one of the Nether Breaths have been used, but Kronx can still drive lethal damage.
Yeah. I was thinking like Zephyrus, but Language Hacker doesn't even play Zephyrus in his Warlock deck.
Yes.
He does play Dragon Queen Alexstrasza. Obviously, we saw it, but does not play the Zephyrus. So I was thinking, if Fr0zen just plays Plague of Death here, then he would die to Zephyrus 100% of the time. But
looks like he might end up going for it. Doesn't have any other better alternative. I'm actually, looking at the health of the board, and a lot of minions being at the 7, 8, 9 range made it very tricky to have meaningful clear. So Fr0zen's just going to go ahead and use his single copy of Plague of Death, which means now he is open.
Why did it? I'm trying to think why he penanced there before Plague of Death.
He's afraid of burst damage.
So both Nether Breaths have been played.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't have another dragon left. So the first Crazed Netherwing is the only one that's active, and Kronx only deals 5. So there was, I believe mathematically, no way for him to die.
Yeah, and penance would be pretty useful here, huh?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
I think you may have convinced me, TJ. That might have been a little bit overkill for Fr0zen.
Yeah, I'm trying to just double check and do my math, but yeah, there's no other dragon in the deck. He's played Alexstrasza, he's played Dragon Queen Alexstrasza. Crazed Netherwing is the only other dragon in the deck besides those two. Because right now his last 2 cards are Veiled Worshipper and an Albatross.
Yeah, and Fr0zen picks correctly. Good read on what's happening here so far. Just recognizing that if he got Sacrificial Pact, he was like, well, I mean, if he invokes again, I'll gain a little bit of life, but not going to be useful for now.
Yeah.
Does he have to Shadow Word Death here in this position? I think he does.
Yeah. I think the penance was they get a Holy Smite. So Holy Smite steal 3 to a minute. Yeah, Veiled Worshipper, last card would be that final Albatross.
Language Hacker
that was
so close. He doesn't have that dragon, like you said. If he had Dragon Activator, he could Craze Netherwing and set up a 2-turn lethal.
Yep, but no dragons left. Unless Albatross somehow got buffed to being a dragon. That'd be an interesting bad luck Albatross change.
I don't necessarily call myself a lore expert, but I would definitely call it to that. That would definitely be a questionable decision, to say the least.
Yeah.
All right, so here we go. Language Hacker with his second to last offensive here. Fr0zen just has to hold on a little bit longer.
Yeah, I mean, you say second to last offensive, but at the same time, there's the Galacron hero power every turn.
Sure.
Oh, no.
I mean, I feel like that roughly counts as an offensive. Yeah.
Yeah. The Sethic Veil Weaver is going to make things a little easier for Fr0zen to kind of clean up here. Because he's just going to keep being able to play spells over and over again.
2 Holy Smites.
Refill his hand. Yep. How about a Mind Control? That works for Kronks. Because now he doesn't have to worry about Kronk summoning the 8/8. He can just summon it himself.
Yeah, I
or
think
steal it himself.
Fr0zen's debating if he wants to even cycle his Holy Smite here for something else. But Breath of the Infinite. And that should lock it up here for lnguagehackr. I think he's too far gone. I don't think he has enough damage. He can Dark Skies and clear off some of this.
He can Kronks for the clear, and then hope that Kronks just lives forever. Not forever, just enough to attack a couple times. But I guess Plague of Flames is just an easier clear in that regard. And just set up some minions.
Right.
Crazed Netherwing plus Albatross.
And it's just like the assortment of generated minions and spells that just kind of is the straw that broke the camel's back here. Like Sacrificial Pact off of a generated Envoy of Lazul that was created randomly. lnguagehackr's like, how are you healing just enough to annoy me and like getting exactly the removal, enough damage for the removal, just to clear off my waves.
That's what you were talking about earlier. How every time you play Priest, it just feels like you're trying to like craft a win condition as the game goes on. You get to the late game and you're like, all right, so I stopped them from winning. Now how do I win? And that's kind of what you have to do is use all of these crazy things that happen to your deck in the late game and find a way to win. But he did.
Just win. That's the win condition of Priest. Find a way to win and make it
Find a way
up.
to win.
Yeah. Well, that's 2-0 lead for Fr0zen. 2 pretty long games, but 2 very fun games because I feel like that wasn't exactly the payout that I was expecting. And now we go down to Demon Hunter as the final class, which lnguagehackr should be prepared for. I feel like that's what he's kind of gearing his decks to beat. Obviously, Warlock, great against Demon Hunter. Warrior, with its armor gain, does tend to give the Demon Hunter some trouble, especially more tempo-oriented versions like the ones that Fr0zen has. And then the Mage deck with tech to try and stop the Demon Hunter with like Acidic Swamp Ooze and a bunch of other stuff like the Water Elementals to just freeze the Demon Hunter repeatedly, and the new card Deep Freeze, which summons 2 Water Elementals, could help lock the Demon Hunter out from killing you very quickly. So I think Mage is like an underrated class to try and counter Demon Hunter, but needless to say that Demon Hunter is still so strong that sometimes it doesn't even matter if you have all the tech in the world. You just don't get time to play it.
Yep. Especially with Fr0zen's version, questing adventure sticks on the board. You don't have a freeze or hard removal, you die. Like that's just how it is. You're dead. Or Mage, which doesn't. He's got lnguagehackr has an earlier curve than Mages. You kind of have to now without Luna's Pocket Galaxy. You kind of have to have a little bit more in the early game to fight against stuff. You're still susceptible to just getting Frenzy Feltwinged out of the game quite quickly. So we'll see. Gonna go with the Warrior first. I feel like this is the best matchup, or at least one of the best out of the ones that he has going for him, especially with how he's built it. lnguagehackr's effectively just made this like the most anti-Demon Hunter thing you could possibly think of.
Yeah. Well,
he's got Sorted Board.
Yeah, he's really trying hard to beat it and target that specific class. And it's tricky because Demon Hunter can go in 2 different directions, 2 very different directions. An aggressive version or like a combo version that tries to burst you out in 1 turn. It's going to be tricky. But like you said, he has outfitted his deck to try to beat the Demon Hunters.
And you know what, Dan? I will say, sometimes you still just lose.
Yeah, especially if you don't have Sword and Board on 1.
Yeah, especially if you don't have Sword and Board on 1. Or just any 1 drop at all. He has to coin out this Imprisoned Vile Fiend and not do anything for a couple turns. Doesn't even have a way to deal with this Battle Fiend. Fr0zen doesn't attack, though. which leads me to believe that he's going to heavily focus on tempo and not just like all out aggression.
Right.
Early on in the game.
It's important to budget your attacks when you have things like Satyr Overseer in your deck as a Demon Hunter. Satyr Overseer is a Demon Hunter card that summons a 2/2 whenever your hero attacks. Keyword is whenever. So that card, especially if you combine it with Warglaze of Azzinoth, can have some pretty high power spike. And look what just fell into the hand of Fr0zen. Satyr Overseer finds its way, and that's exactly what we're talking about. So now he doesn't have to hero power next turn, because obviously he would have been able to attack this turn. But now, if he draws something that requires him to use all 4 mana crystals, he doesn't have to hero power or play Twin Slice to get that second 2/2 up. But of course, we know that that Satyr Overseer is going to die for sure this turn.
Yes, it is. A couple high priority kill targets on board with the Overseer combined with the Battle Fiend. Battle Fiend's going to be taking a hit sometime next week. Wonder if it'll still see some play. We'll still have snowball potential. It'll just come to the board less power, be it 1 attack naturally. But lnguagehackr still managed to kind of stop this attack train. Has been able to contest the board well enough to not let it get out of control, and as long as he's able to pick up some armor gain to stifle the potential aggression from Fr0zen, he'll be fine. But needs to pick that up.
They will never catch me.
Questing Adventure comes into the hand, but I think Questioning Adventurer, if you're not going to be able to play it out and get a bunch of tempo immediately, it might be like a card that you combo with later as well.
Yeah, that's true. This warrior deck does lack hard removal. I'm kind of looking over at the list now, and the biggest thing is Kargath Blade Fist and Restless Mummy and Blood Boil Brood. Just rushing big stuff into the questing would be the best way for them to deal with like a massive questing. So if Fr0zen, the best way for him to play this, as long as he has the time to be able to do so, would probably be to just wait until questing can get massive after you get a bunch of discounted stuff from Skull of Gul'dan. But we'll see how he decides to play it, because it is going to start to get tough if lnguagehackr starts to build up a board and can get some armor. Now that he's picked up an armor smith, it's going to start getting a little awkward.
Yeah. And now Fr0zen just trying to chain draw his way and set up for a good tempo swing. But lnguagehackr does have the board for now, and that's going to make it trickier, especially if boombots keep getting summoned for Fr0zen to try to win back the board decisively. He might be starting to convert to the burn game plan.
Yeah, which is a viable strategy, Dan. Very viable strategy.
Totally. I mean, a lot of times people say that with the Tempo Demon Hunter, you're trying to, essentially vomit your hand out onto the board. It's a little bit of a vivid imagery. I wasn't sure if I was a fan of that description, but I totally get what they're saying, which is try to burst out your hand at one point, put them all out in quick succession, and then if you need to use your damage card, try to get the burst in to finish the game. You can see Fr0zen's already kind of on that plan, just knowing the board, get him down to 13 hit points. And Crash is like, okay, all right, well, better find a way to gain armor here.
Yeah, he does have a way to gain armor here. It's by pressing his hero power.
Yeah, I was somewhat intrigued by lnguagehackr going for the Corsair Cache here, because his weapon that he would draw is Livewire Lance. There's no Wrench Caliber, for example.
We could pick up the Anchor.
Oh yeah, and the Anchor, you're right.
The Anchor.
Oh, so he's trying to go for the Risky Skipper, that's what it was.
Yeah.
Yep, you're right.
That's what it feels like, just to try and get the armor gain from Armorsmith just off the bat.
You are correct. That makes a lot of sense, and that is somewhat unfortunate for lnguagehackr, but it was more likely to draw a Livewire Lance than.
Yeah. So Fr0zen can't let this board build up for much longer. Obviously, his goal has kind of been to let the board just kind of be as is, to one, not let lnguagehackr have targets to trade into to gain armor from Armorsmith. Try and piece together some additional stuff. There's Metamorphosis. That's some burn that he's looking for. He's got both twin slices.
So both twin slices is 4 damage. Metamorphosis is 5, so that's 9. Hero power is 10. That's still a ways away from being able to end the game next turn.
Yeah.
And Fr0zen can restrict the mana a little bit from his opponent, but if he's staying on this line, he's not going to play this Battle Mage.
The sword and board.
Sword and board. He knows about the anchor possibility, but the benefit is that by restricting his mana, he's preventing the ability for anchor to be played, draw the Risky Skipper, and play the Armorsmith with it. Which is kind of big if you think about it. Because lnguagehackr would have the perfect amount of mana to get himself out of trouble here.
Yeah.
Because anchor would cost 3. Anchor would draw the Risky Skipper. Unless I'm missing something and there's another pirate in his deck that he would pull. And then...
he does. He has a Captain Greenskin.
Oh, you're right, the Captain Greenskin.
He also has the second Sky Raider. He's only played one Sky Raider.
You are correct.
So, it'll be a 50-50. He has a Sky Raider, a Captain Greenskin, and the 2 Risky Skippers. So it'll be 50-50.
Still, in that event, it is possible for Fr0zen to have gotten completely destroyed.
Yeah.
But now, lnguagehackr is just putting out some pressure, wondering about how much he wants to commit to this. Still not going to play anything else. And here we go.
All right, time to go off. He could play...
He wants to play Metamorphosis this turn too, right? Because he needs to get that 2 hero powers over the course of 2 turns.
Yeah. I mean, he could play most of his hand, right? Because Frenzied Felwing's going to be active too for 0.
Oh, yeah.
Everything but the weapon, I believe, is what he can play. Actually, yeah, his hero's at 4 attack. I thought it was at 3 attack for a moment, but I guess it doesn't matter because he's going to be weaving in this hero power anyway. And then there's the Frenzied Felwing coming down. That's going to be lnguagehackr at 8 and a 10-10 questing adventure on board. And lnguagehackr also knows that there's at least 6 damage pouring at his face next turn with the Metamorphosis hero power plus normal hero power.
Whew. All right. Well, first things first, can we kill this questing adventure? We can with the Restless Mummy, but the mana burn prevents him from playing the Armorsmith as well. That's so annoying.
Yeah, I wonder if he's floated so much mana. I wonder if getting the Armorsmith down would have been
even more important. Yeah,
was even more important. I'm looking through his Fr0zen's list right now. He does not have a consume magic, so no silence. Maybe he was worried about like Warglaze of Azeroth. Or Glaiebon Adept, something that would just kill it and severely limit its armor gain before he could get more bonus off. But at that point, you don't have Ankar, you don't have Risky Skipper, so your ability to generate large amounts of armor relies on a top deck, which would be a 2 and 18, so 1 and 9 top deck of Risky Skipper to really get the job done.
Yeah, he's trying to gain the most amount of armor here, and then go for the sword and board. And armor up.
Yeah. I mean, it's a lot. He's at 13, and there's 9 damage guaranteed on board.
Ooh.
So that's 8,
Close.
9, 13. No, that's lethal.
Oh, he has enough mana, right?
Yeah, so he goes Metamorphosis, attacks with Frenzied Felwing, that's 8. Then attacks with the hero power.
Oh my goodness, you're right.
Yeah, or he can just play the Umberwing. That also works too.
Oh,
because they're both 1 damage. It's exact lethal, I believe.
Is that exact lethal? I think it is.
Yeah,
lnguagehackr.
exact.
Unhappy to
man.
see that. Such tight margins being thrown away back and forth in this series. But it was a really tightly contested one, and I totally understand the lines of play that lnguagehackr was looking for. But you call into question one thing, which was, did Language Hacker get a little bit too greedy with holding the Armor Smith, hoping that he would draw some way to access Risky Skipper? And when you die, with exact damage in that situation, when Demon Hunter has like almost no cards left, you always wonder, how could I have squeezed a little bit more life or prevented just a little bit more damage, especially when you're like ending turns with floating 1 mana or more. So it's especially painful. And obviously it's so much easier for us to kind of call those plays from this seat, and I'm sure Language Hacker understands, both given that he's a player and a caster himself. But man, that is a painful loss for Language Hacker, to say the least.
Yeah. It is. And also, even more painful by the fact that a Glaive-bound Adept off the top, or having already being in hand, would be the only way Fr0zen could kill him that turn, because he'd already played Chaos Strike. He wouldn't have enough cards with Altruist. It also would have just killed or gained a bunch of armor with the Armor Smith.
He wouldn't have enough
was
mana
literally the only card.
He wouldn't have enough mana for Inner Demon either, right? Because it was
There's
exactly
no Inner Demon,
mana.
no Inner Demon in the deck.
Oh, you're right.
So Glaive-bound Adept, and it's only a 1/of. So that's the only way he does.
Kane also would have been okay as well, right? Because he would have been at the hero power afterwards.
Yes. Oh, okay. Yeah, you're right. Kane would have also been enough. Yeah, because it would have been the extra 4. Because he would have been able to hero power.
But that's 2 cards.
2 cards out of what, 14?
Yeah.
So maybe that's what was going through
Language Hacker's mind.
Language Hacker's head. He's like, yeah, it's very unlikely that I die. He was thinking I can wait 1 more turn to try and find Risky Skipper, because if he does find Risky Skipper, he essentially wins on the spot, because there's so much armor gain that would have come through at that point. That he would have been able to hold off whatever. But the questing also threw a wrench in the plan. I don't know if he expected him to be able to play that big of a questing with that little mana. But after Skull of Gul'dan, anything is possible, Dan.
Skull of Gul'dan. With Gul'dan, all things are possible. So with that, our second series is done, and we are going to start moving on into the bracket. As you can see,